Some women believe marriage is forever, that marriage is for better for worse. Some women believe love can conquer all. But what happens when the love you trust so much becomes your own doom, the prison you never saw coming? Lilian stood at the threshold of her new life, radiant in her ivory wedding gown, the silk shimmering under the golden afternoon sun. Her smile could have lit up every street in city of Benin, her eyes shining with hope, excitement, and unwavering belief in a simple truth. Love has brought this moment, and marriage was meant for better or worse. Her friends and family clutched tissues as they whispered congratulations. The music swelled. The flowers smelled of promise. And then there was Raphael, handsome, confident, dressed in a perfectly tailored suit. He kissed her hand and whispered, "Forever with you, Lilian, always." From the outside, it seemed perfect, but sometimes perfection is just a calm before a storm. The first weeks of married life were dreamy. Lilian floated on clouds of love, but soon subtle changes crept in. Raphael began suggesting she quit her job to focus on the home. He smiled, persuasive and charming, but there was a shadow behind it, a quiet insistence that she obey. Lilian hesitated. She had worked hard for her independence, her career, her voice, but she loved him, and love can be blinding. For better or worse, she whispered to herself. The following week she handed in her resignation. It felt like sacrifice, but in her heart, she believed it was temporary. At first, Raphael's requests seemed small. No late-night outings. He said, "Focus on us." No family visits, no old friends meetings at IT, all sounded like devotion, like love. But slowly, the walls closed in. Money became scarce, handed over in small amounts with sharp remarks. "You don't need more than this." Her independence was slipping away like sand through fingers. Her friends tried to reach her, but their messages went unanswered. Even her mother noticed a change. Concern etched across her face. "Lilian, is everything okay?" "I'm fine," Lilian said, forcing a smile. Her heart was breaking, but she told herself she was strong enough to endure, that this is just a phase. Then the dreaded storm began to unfold. It began with small hints. Late-night phone calls, a familiar perfume on his clothes, whispers that didn't belong to her. Lilian tried to deny it. She rationalized. Maybe I'm imagining it. Maybe I'm just being too sensitive. Months passed. Pregnancy came as a blessing and a burden. Lilian's body grew round with life, but so did her anxiety. Raphael became distant. He didn't share her excitement, didn't help with appointments, didn't hold her hand at night. He began to complain that she eats too much, and she is adding so much weight. And yet, Lilian whispered to herself, for better or worse, I can endure this. The day Zachora was born, Lilian's heart was full, expecting the love and support from the man she had promised herself to forever. But Raphael's absence was deafening. He appeared briefly, smiled once, left again. The baby cried. She cried. Alone in the hospital room, Lilian held her tiny daughter and felt a cold emptiness where warmth should have been. "You're too lazy. Can you ever get anything done right?" She heard him say one evening when she was cooking, but the baby kept crying, and while attending to the baby, the food got burnt. His words cutting deeper than any blade. "Maybe if you weren't too fat, things would be easier," he bellowed. She swallowed her pain, nodded, and cried in silence. One evening, Ife, her friend, decided to visit her after closing from work. Lilian was looking gloomy and so out of herself when she arrived at her house. "Are you all right, Lily?" she asked her. "You don't look good. What happened to you?" "I'm okay, Ife. You know, baby stress and all that. Family stress," but her eyes holds deeper pain than what she was saying, and Ife knew it. "Is that all?" She pressed on, but just as Lilian was about to open her mouth, her husband walked in and was infuriated. He looked at them with an eye that can kill it were to be a gun. He couldn't even hold himself for Ife to go before he lashed out on Lilian. Ife stood up to him trying to defend her friend, but was shocked when Lilian told her to stay out of it, that it is a family issue and she shouldn't interfere. She told her to leave, that she will take care of her home, and just like that, Ife was forced to go. But even with anger in her heart as she was going, she was still worried about her friend. You needed to see what happened when Ife left. Over the weekend, she tried reaching to Lilian, but with no success. Then she decided to visit again, and when she got there, what she saw was what she couldn't say. "Who did this to you, Lily?" "It's fine," she replied. "It's not that serious." "Not that serious?" Ife screamed at her. "Look at you, Lily. You are a shadow of yourself. You need to speak up, confront him. You need seek help." But Lilian had been trained by culture, by love, by hope, to make excuses. "It's my fault," she whispered. "I must be doing something wrong." "Your fault? Because you married him? You need help." "It's fine. I will be all right. You should start going before my husband gets back." And just like that, Ife was asked to leave. Lilian knew she was losing herself. Even her body betrayed her. Sleepless nights, aches from pregnancy, postpartum recovery, and she smiled for him anyway. She cooked, cleaned, and cared for Zecora, while Raphael disappeared into nights of unknown indulgence. Her soul was quietly fraying. One evening, she returned home to find Raphael not just distant, but brazen. A woman's laughter echoed through the hallway. The sight of them together, carefree, defiant, ignited something inside Lilian, a spark she thought had died. "You've gone too far this time," she said, voice trembling yet fierce. Raphael laughed, mocking her anger, and she felt the years of self-blame, the months of silence, the endless excuses finally crumble. The argument erupted like a storm. Words clashed, doors slammed. Zecora's cries pierced attention. For the first time in years, Lilian shouted not to placate, not to explain, but to assert herself. And in that shouting, in that moment, she realized she could not continue like this. After the storm, silence fell. Lilian sat on the edge of the bed, Zecora sleeping in her arms. Her body ached, her heart ached, but for the first time in a long time, her mind felt awake. She thought her friend's words, the things she had abandoned, of her career that had vanished, of the life she had surrendered just to be with him. How had she lost herself so completely? Her tears were not just for the betrayal. This time, they were for the woman she had almost stopped being, the woman she had almost lost. The house was quiet now, but the echo of her anger lingered. Lilian didn't yet know what her next steps would be. She didn't know if she could rise again. But deep down, a whisper of determination stirred, growing louder with every heartbeat. Am I going to let this define me, or am I going to take back the life I gave away? If you were in Lilian's shoes, would you stay silent, hoping things would get better? Or would you finally stand up for yourself? Even if it meant breaking everything you thought you knew about love, and the ones you are taught by parents and tradition. Sometimes, the hardest battles are not fought with swords or guns, but with the fragments of your own shattered heart. The city of Benin hummed with life outside, unaware of the quiet storm brewing, inside a small, brightly painted apartment. Lilian sat by the window, Zecora asleep in her arms, feeling the weight of every lost moment pressing against her chest. Her body had carried life, but her spirit had carried years of neglect, isolation, and silent pain. She had endured it all, the lies, the excuses, the cheating. But for the first time, something inside her flickered, whispering a dangerous truth. I cannot continue like this. Days passed after the confrontation with Raphael, yet Lilian felt no relief. The house, once a home, had become a cage. Every corner held memories of her compliance, her sacrifices, the endless endurance that had marked her existence. She moved through rooms like a ghost, carrying Zecora as if the child were the only tether keeping her from vanishing completely. Friends called, family sent messages, but she ignored them, not out of malice, but because she was drowning in the enormity of what she had lost. She had given her life to someone who saw her only as a shadow, a servant, a body, a vessel for his control. Her dreams, her laughter, her ambition, all had been quietly erased. Each night, she sat alone, staring at the ceiling, replaying every humiliation, every slight, every unkind word. She asked herself questions that had no easy answers. Am I too weak? Am I imagined betrayal? Was I the one to blame? And yet, beneath the suffocating weight of despair, a spark of revolt stirred. It was faint at first, a mere flicker, but unmistakable. The embers of a woman who had been buried under years of control were waking. Lilian realized with a shiver of both fear and hope that survival was not enough. She wanted more. She wanted to reclaim herself, piece by piece, before the life she once knew could die completely. One morning, as the sun spilled through the blinds in golden strips, a knock on the door shattered Lilian's silence. She opened it to see Ife, her childhood friend, standing with a mixture of concern and warmth. It was a hug that held decades of shared memories and unspoken understanding. "I've been worried," Ife said, her voice trembling with the weight of unsaid words. "You're not yourself." Lilian forced a smile, the kind of smile that hides every storm inside. "I'm fine," she lied, but Ife didn't push. She simply stepped inside, her presence saying what words could not. And in that quiet companionship, Lilian felt something she had not felt in years. Recognition. She was not invisible. She existed, not as Raphael's property or Zecora's caretaker alone, but as herself. Ife's words, soft but firm, lodged themselves deep in Lilian's mind. "Don't have to stay like this anymore. You can fight back. You can leave." That single phrase became a seed. It took root in her heart, growing with every conversation. Every memory of who she had been before her world became Raphael's playground. Lilian began to see a path forward, dim and tentative at first, but real. She could rise again. She began going out during work hours when Raphael is still at work. One day, Lilian ran into Tosin, an old colleague who had always admired her quietly from a distance. He did not offer pity or condescension. He offered recognition, respect, and a subtle challenge. "Remember the woman you were. You've got fire in you, Lilian," he said over coffee one evening, his eyes steady, unwavering. "I've always known it. Don't let anyone snuff it out." Her lips twitched into a small, dangerous smile, a smile that had not existed for months. The warmth of someone seeing her, truly seeing her, reminded her of potential that still resided within. She realized that strength was not just surviving, it was action. She spent hours thinking about what that meant. She couldn't undo the past, and Raphael would never change, but she could rebuild herself, piece by piece, step by step. Every act of self-care, every plan to return to work, every conversation with supportive friends and mentors became a brick in the foundation of the woman she was becoming. Yet tension lingered like a shadow. Raphael was still there, lurking, unpredictable, and dangerous. He would notice. He would try to stop her, and she was beginning to understand that true freedom would not come without resistance. With Ife and Tosin's encouragement, Lilian began taking tangible steps toward independence. She updated her CV, researched jobs online, and rehearsed interviews she had postponed for years. Each small victory, sending an application, receiving a response, dressing her own style again, felt like a rebellion against years of silence. Lilian's confidence began to return, subtle at first. Her laughter returned in small doses. Her voice grew steadier. Even her posture shifted. She walked as if the world was hers to reclaim. Raphael noticed. At first, it was a glance, then a question, then anger. One evening, he confronted her, his voice low and dangerous. "You think you can just leave the house? Work? Who will take care of the baby?" "I'm capable," Lilian replied, her voice calm but unyielding. "I've always been capable." The room went silent. For the first time, Raphael realized the woman he had tried to control was no longer afraid. She was awake, and she would no longer bend to his whims. Raphael's reaction escalated. Threats, sharp words, and ultimatums became his new language. He handed Lilian divorce papers, certain she would collapse, beg, or retreat, but she had grown stronger than he had anticipated. She read them, heart steady, and realized he was digging his own grave. In court, evidence of neglect, emotional abuse, and infidelity emerged. Witnesses spoke. Neighbors, friends. Even Lilian's mother testified to years of quiet suffering. Lilian remained composed, silent in her dignity, knowing every word spoken would restore her power. When the verdict came, Raphael was stunned. The house, significant savings, even other properties were awarded to Lilian. He had lost not because she had sought revenge, but because truth had finally caught up with him. The tension was palpable. Lilian's independence was complete. But Raphael's shadow still lingered, foreshadowing the next confrontation. With newfound freedom, Lilian's life began to bloom. She thrived at work, expanded her business, and rebuilt her identity. Zikora's laughter filled the apartment again, a sound of life and resilience. Lilian sent her daughter temporarily to her mother's care, not out of neglect, but to focus on building stability for both of them. But shadows still loomed. Raphael's pride, anger, and unpredictability created a tension that lingered at the edges of her life. The city of Lagos continued moving, indifferent to her struggle. Yet each passing day Lilian grew stronger, more confident. A question hovered in her mind. When the person who broke you comes crawling back, asking for help, will you give them a second chance? Or will you finally choose yourself? Everything moved around her, indifferent as ever. Cars honking, market sellers calling, children laughing in the streets. But Lilian's world had shifted. The storm of her past, the chaos and neglect and betrayal, was behind her. Yet, a shadow loomed in the corners of her thoughts. Raphael. He had tried to control her, belittle her, and erase her existence. But she was no longer the woman who endured silently. She had grown, evolved, and claimed her life back. And now, fate was testing both of them in ways neither could have predicted. Raphael's life, once filled with wealth, charm, and indulgence, was unraveling. Nights of partying and fleeting flings had left him isolated. Friends drifted away, and the women who surrounded him vanished when trouble came. And then came the diagnosis. HIV. The man who had wielded power like a weapon now faced vulnerability. For the first time, he realized that life had consequences. And he realized too late that the person he had underestimated, the woman he had tried to break, was the only one capable of helping him. He stood at her doorstep, trembling, weak, and ashamed. "Lilian, please, I need you. I don't know what to do," he said, voice cracking. Would she forgive him, or would she finally close the door for good? Lilian looked at him, calm and composed. Every memory of his lies, every moment of neglect, every tear she had shed, they were all there, clear and unshakable. Her heart beat steadily, not with fear, not with anger, but with quiet strength. "You had your chance," she said softly. "You made your choices. And now, you must face the consequences yourself." She turned away, leaving him at the doorstep, her back straight, her head held high. She did not look back. It was not cruelty. It was survival, wisdom, and self-respect. Raphael's pleas fell into silence. The house behind her was warm, alive with laughter and light, while he was left alone, confronting the emptiness of his decisions. Lilian's life flourished. Her business expanded, her career soared, and her relationship with Zecora strengthened. She no longer measured herself by the whims of another, but by her own accomplishments and the love she nurtured within herself. She walked the streets with confidence, her smile radiant, her energy magnetic. Every step was a statement. I am free. I am enough. I am whole. Meanwhile, Raphael sank further into isolation. Health, pride, and control, everything he had taken for granted, was gone. He learned the hardest lessons the world can teach. Regret cannot rebuild what was destroyed, and apologies cannot erase the choices that shaped her. Through her journey, Lilian realized something essential. True strength is not measured by revenge or punishment. It is measured by resilience, growth, and the courage to step into a life you build with your own hands. She became a mentor to young women in her community, a living example that even in the darkest times, self-respect and perseverance could reclaim what was lost. She nurtured Zecora, taught her independence, and showed her the power of standing tall, no matter the storms outside. The world she built was quiet, steady, and unstoppable. Lilian had not just survived. She had transformed into someone who no one could control again. As she watched the sunset from her balcony, she reflected on the journey. Betrayal, silence, pain, all had been stepping stones to a life she would never trade. And yet, the question remained, echoing quietly. If someone broke you completely, and then returned asking for forgiveness, would you open the door? Or would you finally protect the life you fought so hard to reclaim? It is a question that resonates beyond Lilian's story, reaching anyone who has faced heartbreak, control, or betrayal. Lilian chose herself. She refused to be broken again. Now, I want to hear from you. If you were in her shoes, would you forgive, or would you rise above and close the door forever? Comment below and share your thoughts, because your story matters too.